Hello, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Survivor Now podcast. I almost forgot the name of the show. Like, for whatever reason, I was like, oh my gosh, we are here. What are we doing? It's a Thursday. Everything's thrown off, but we have an incredible program for you guys covering episode 8 of Survivor 44. As always, I am joined by a few of my counterparts. Josh Verlin is here. Josh, how are we doing today? Team Danny, I see.
I mean, it's okay that you forgot the name of the podcast, Randy. It is 420, so we get it.
Someone had to make that joke.
Man, yeah, doing well. Good episode last night. Yeah, I had to throw my Danny support up there.
I knew you'd be in a great mood today after that move last night. Fellow Philadelphia man. He's from Philadelphia?
No,
right?
he's a New Yorker.
See, what do I know?
Like him.
Fake fan. We also have Abraham here today with a new backdrop. Abraham, you want to explain to us that picture really fast?
That's life at Ponderosa season 41. After you get voted out, we're just kind of relaxing, enjoying ourselves, waiting for the next vote out. And we just do stuff. You know, we entertain ourselves for 24/7.
Waiting to see who's going to join you next. And we have a special guest for you guys today, the winner of Survivor South Africa, Return of the Outcasts, the latest to etch his name in the Survivor Hall of Fame. Dino is here. Dino, how are we doing?
Dude, that's quite an intro, and I still can't believe it. Like, it's real. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks so much, man. And like I said backstage, thanks so much for having me back on the podcast. I mean, as you know, always been a fan of the game first, so to be able to sit around and just chat game, chat Survivor is always a pleasure. So I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you for having me back.
Of course. And this man has been busy. I won't get into everything, but let me just tell you the commitment. So I reached out to Dino, said, Dino, you want to come on the show and chat with us? And he went, all right, well, I got to catch up on the season. And you've watched the entire season, what, this week alone to catch up?
Yeah, which sounds wild, right? But I mean, we've just come out of like the Australian season, right? And I fell slightly behind that, and their runtime is like an hour 20 something minutes. So catching up a couple of episodes for the US was like a breeze comparatively. So it went by pretty quickly, man. So yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. I've been really looking forward to getting into 44. I just had my hands full with a couple of things, but yeah, it was really good to get back into it.
Plus, the first 3 minutes are literally a recap of everything that's happened so far, so you can just skip right over that, anyways.
Yeah.
It airs 8:00 here Eastern. I think you said 6 hours ahead of us. Did you watch last night's episode at 2 a.m?
No, I haven't done that for a while. I haven't been watching live for a while. It's a bit challenging at times, but I just wait until something's available on the internet, and I watch it as soon as I've got some free time throughout the day or in the evening. Generally, I'd wait until my wife finishes work, and we'll watch it together in the evenings. But today's an exception. I needed to get ahead ready for the podcast.
She's gonna be mad at us now. Don't throw that on us.
I apologize, Dina. So I unlike Randy and Abe, I have not watched the international season. So first of all, congratulations on your win. But I'm curious, as someone from another country, did you grow up watching the American version, or did you find out about Survivor when it came to South Africa?
Oh no, 100% the American version. So it aired just under a year later in South Africa.
Okay.
So somewhere around 2001. And I was a youngster, and I remember watching it on the network at the time called SABC. And I'd watched a good couple of seasons when I was much, much younger. Loved the show. Always thought to myself, like, geez, if there was one show I could do, it would be Survivor. That's like the dream. And And then South Africa had like intermittent seasons every, from around 2006 onwards. So I mostly watched US Survivor. And it was only more recently that I got into Australia, and I say more recently, the last 4 years. And then, yeah, I mean, always watch the African version as well. Got to support our home production.
Now, there is a few things that I want to cover before we actually get into covering last night's episode. First off, our condolences to the family and friends of Keith Nail. I know he was a larger-than-life personality, and I don't think any of us – I mean, Abe, did you meet him at Give Kids the World?
He wasn't there the year I went last year, but I've heard a lot of great things about him. I remember watching him on his season as well, US Survivor. It's a family, man. It's a family of people that played this crazy game we call Survivor, but they definitely pulled together when something happens to someone in it. It's it's gonna be sad because you kind of get a chance to meet the legends that inspired us to play the game, and we watch. And when you get a chance to meet them, you get to pick their brains and stuff. So he definitely will be missed.
And there's also some breaking news in the Survivor world as well, with the fact that Bruce, who was medically evacuated this season, is highly rumored, that's the best way I can put it, to be on season 45. So Josh, I'll go to you for this one. There was also some rumblings that there could be 2 more medevac people coming back for the season, in Courtney and, oh my gosh, what was his name?
Pat? Was Pat? No.
Pat, yes.
Pat.
Thank you, Dino. Dino came prepared today. So, yeah, Pat, Courtney, and Bruce, possibly, with Bruce being the more rumored one at the moment. So what do we think about this possibly being like maybe a Philippine situation where there's one on each team? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it not just because it worked in Philippines, but it did work in Philippines. But all 3 of them are in the same situation where they got injured before they could really even play the game. So I think it's a good opportunity to bring back 3 people that, earned their chance to be there and really through no fault of their own. I mean, you can make the slight argument that Courtney should, crossed her arms instead of putting her arms out, but really through no fault of their own, didn't get that opportunity. So you get 3 returners that fans will feel like, okay, they deserve this, but it shouldn't have too much of an influence on like, oh, they played before, we're going to vote them out. Like, I think the other players are going to see them as fresh players as well. The one downside to me is I think it indicates that we're sticking in 3 tribes of 6 moving forwards, which is a shame. But overall, for the 3 of them to return, I'm pro that.
I mean, let's just put like the emblem of what took them out on the buff. I think that'd be cool. Like on Bruce's tribe, he has like the wooden beam, and then on Pat's tribe, he has the boat, and then on Courtney's tribe, she has the net. I'm just saying. I think that.
I mean, they're going to bring those challenges back. First challenge is going to be like dive under this beam and then jump off this net, and then we're going to take a rough boat ride through this. Yeah, like I don't know how
it's going to be a combination of all 3. Dino, what are we thinking, man? Do we like this idea possibly happening?
I'm so happy to hear that players are given that opportunity again, particularly in the case of a medevac. I feel super strongly, obviously, with my journey in particular, probably, but I feel super strongly about untapped potential in pre-mergers as a whole. Abe, I'm sure you share the sentiment, but
we're gonna go. Yes, I do.
Particularly for players who missed out the opportunity just through a bit of a freak accident. So I'm super happy to see them return, and like Josh says, it's in a way that shouldn't impact their game too negatively. So it's always difficult being a minority of returnees in a majority of newbies. There's already a heightened target, but nobody really got to see you play. You didn't really get to play. Like a day or 2 on the island doesn't give you some sort of competitive advantage. So I think in terms of returning, they're returning in as level a playing field as possible, given the circumstances. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that Bruce is returning, and I hope it's true for the other 2 too.
Bruce would basically be, if you count him a returnee, which, like it or not, he is kind of a returnee. He'd be the first returnee of the new era, which would be kind of good to see. And also, if Courtney and Pat do come back, that kind of squashes the rumor that Jeff kind of put out there potentially after season 40 Winners at War, where he was like, we're done with the first 40 seasons. No one can come back, which would also be a good sign. Let me tell you guys, I am a ray of positivity this week. I got some hatefulness for being so down and so negative, and I do feel bad about last week's episode. I was so negative about it, and I saw someone tweet out that everything that's happened in the Survivor world, both with the sad passing of Keith Nail and everything, they tweeted out and they said, let's just be happy it's on. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I am happy. That Survivor is still kicking and everything. So I'm going to be a ray of positivity. And you guys can be too. Make sure to hop in the chat. Georgette has already said, hi guys. So excited to have Dino here too. We are honored to have him here. Alex said, hey guys, are you going to be answering Twitter questions? Yes, you can message us on Twitter, on Instagram, and we will be taking questions at the end of the show. You can also leave them in the live chat. Abraham, did you have something to add before we get started?
Yeah, we're going to circle back around. I think Bruce coming back is great. I think he has a little bit of an edge because he has seen his own season play out. So he kind of got an idea of how you play, what to look for. And then you have everything from season 41 leading up to season 44. I think if you bring the other two back, you cross back over to this whole new era of Survivor. And that opens the door to bringing players in versus creating a whole new stream of players. And I think we look and say, okay, Bruce got injured, doing something, and he comes back. But Courtney, it's been some years since she played the game of Survivor. Not saying that she couldn't come back, but do you really want to open that door? That's going to be kind of interesting because if you bring the latter two players back, you open up the door for era, as Jeff has said, of the new version of Survivor with all new players. Because you can't keep building on the past. You got to keep moving forward.
I think you can. I think you can. You can definitely keep building on the past.
Some of the best seasons of the show's history have been returning players. I think we should see a returning player season every 4 seasons.
I'm talking about from the new era. As you get more players, like we're going to 45, you have a lot of players that either we didn't get a chance to see or they flamed out or whatever. Because if you look at Dino's season, Return of the Outcasts, I thought that was a great concept to give those players another chance to come out there and play and see how they actually, attack the game. But how far back are we going to keep going? Because there's plenty of people that got
keep going. I'd love to see a season of American survivors who played 10 to 15 years ago, who maybe didn't do so well in their opening seasons, but not in a offensive way, just got voted out. We're on the wrong side of the numbers or whatever. And now they're 10 years older or whatever it may be coming back. I think that would be a great season.
I would like to see a season of first boots. Everybody who was the first and second boot, bring the season back.
As long as they're entertaining, bring them back. I definitely think there's a lot of players who have played a lot. Maybe they're done. I know people are going to hate me saying this, like Sandra, Parvati, people who have played 6-7 seasons. Maybe they've had their time. I'm not saying obviously Parvati hasn't played that long. Ozzy has played a numerous amount of seasons. Boston Rob. Maybe it's time for them to retire and make way for other returnees, because there's a lot of people who were voted out pre-merge that we've just never seen again. But now on to this episode. And the first thing I want to talk about is how this plan got put together. So we ended up seeing Brandon go home tonight. Spoiler alert. I hope you're not watching this if you haven't seen the episode. But this plan was a little bit more chaotic than it needed to be, because Danny said he was going to play his idol for Franny. And then pretty much the entire tribe knew about this. Dino, was this amazing gameplay? Play your idol for Franny. It did work. She got the majority of the votes, but Brandon still went home. Or was this a little bit too much? Tell a few people you're going to do this. We don't need to tell the entire tribe. Was it a little too risky of a play to tell everyone this is what we're doing?
From whose perspective exactly are you referring to?
I would say Danny. I mean, he didn't do that much wrong, because he did just tell Heidi, but then Heidi kind of went out and told everyone.
Yeah. So was it a good play? Was it good for the game? Yes. Did he execute well on what he set out to do? Yes. Do I think it was the best move for Danny long term? Does it improve his chances of winning the game? Not necessarily, right? I know that deviates slightly from your question on, was it the right thing to do to tell everyone? Well, by telling Heidi, who then ended up telling everyone. But I think at this stage, you are impacting and changing the game. You're giving up a level of power and security in this idol to change a bit of dynamic, but I don't think the dynamic shifts enough. Like, you bring a powerhouse of 4 down to 3, sure, now it's 3-3-3, and that power dynamic shifts, but there's not enough of a shift in the sense where he's now set in stone with a really strong alliance moving forward that he's protected. He's now put a target on his back. He's got probably the biggest post-merge move so far on his resume, and he becomes a target and he doesn't have protection, right? And now he's relying on a block, essentially, who were kind of on board with this play for self-interest, that might not pull through for him. So I am concerned for Danny, but I do love the way he read the situation, the way he had told Heidi to try and build that rapport, spoken to Franny, cool, got them on board. It shouldn't have spread the way it spread. He was aware of that. When he found out it got back to Jam Jam, he was concerned about the impact, and he had really thought like the next 2 steps where he's like, okay, if I'm on the other side, I'm deviating, saying the votes on Franny and then throwing my votes on Danny, So I love the way he thought that through. He's very, very calculated, super astute, highly aware. And in that situation, for him to still have the kahunas to go and play that for Franny, I admire that. That is insane, to get that read spot on and to go and do that, putting your game at risk. I'm sure there's a lot of content that we've missed out on, sadly, from production side, that, conversations we haven't seen that would have squashed his concerns, which I'm sad to not see. There must have been more context to it. I don't know if this really answers your question. I'm going on like a bit of a monologue here, but
no, go ahead, man.
but essentially, it's going to go, for me, all of this goes back to, like, this was an episode where I felt there was very little production interference and direction, and the players came to the fore, and the players played, and the players delivered in many different aspects, and that's what I think everyone felt. This episode was so refreshing. It felt a little bit like, the Survivor's back this week, because it felt more about the gameplay from the players rather than a produced set of twists,
Yep. And Abraham, you are Mr. Everything Dino just said. You're Mr. Keep your mouth shut. Why do we have to tell everyone? I mean, what's your opinion on all of this? It ended up being a great move, but everyone knew about this. This could have easily, if Jam Jam decided to go and tell Ratu that what the plan was, this could have easily flipped on Danny, and he could have went home after playing the idol for Franny.
See, we get hindsight 2020. We get to see the aftermath and say, oh, it did work. Did he make a couple of missteps? Yes. He told too many people, but that happens because you tell one person, they're trying to curry favor with someone else, so they tell them a little bit of information, and then you got loose lips, shank ships person. In this one, it's Heidi. She told, and then Carson told Danny that Heidi told him, and so everybody's trying to move different pieces of the puzzle.
Moves like wildfire.
Said something. Yeah, I think Kane said something so pivotal during Tribal Council. He said everybody is trying to make a move for currency, and that move has to put you a little further in the game. Now, I'm going with Dino. He made a move. It was a great move. You got a good threat out, but you left a threat in because you still got Lauren, who has an extra vote. She only needs 2 other players to jump on board with her, and she can vote out anyone else next. So Danny, unless he wins immunity, guess what? He has a target, and she needs less people. And now Danny's been really vocal about, I want to get Lauren out of the game because she has 2 votes. But now Danny becomes the head threat because he organized that whole play. So it's going to be kind of interesting how we go with the next episode and how that plays out.
Josh, is this a threat that Danny can, does this really put him as a top threat? Is he in danger now, or do we think that he can kind of reel it back in and manage this threat level?
Look at Josh got Team Danny up under his time.
Oh, yeah, he might be a little biased here.
Did I text Danny, fuck yeah, after I watched the episode last night? Like, yeah, I did. I think he can manage it. And I say that in the new era of Survivor, where Jam Jam still is a huge threat, and Carolyn still is a huge threat, and even if people maybe don't see it, but Carson is especially still a huge threat, and Heidi just sort of told people some information she shouldn't know or shouldn't have told, And if that gets back to her, so I think in this era where you have 9 people left and they all have a compelling story, Lauren just won an immunity. Maybe Jamie's the only one that really feels like a little under the radar at the moment, but I feel like, every cycle, 2 days later, something could totally change. And now the attention is on somebody else. So I think that was a really good move for Danny, but I don't think that it's been like a one player dominant season to the point where it's like, oh, now he's clearly heads and tails above everybody else. All right, he made a move, great. But like, if you make a move to get out somebody else, then now you've made a move. It doesn't have to be to get out Danny.
Was Brandon the right move? Like, what do we think here? Was Brandon, you have this idle play for Franny, and you're trying to take out someone from Ratu. You've got Lauren, you got Brandon, you've got Kane. Is that the right move to make, to take out Brandon because he seems like what I can assume, a physical threat, and that's why they wanted to target Brandon there?
I mean, I didn't see Brandon as the biggest threat, because Brandon was basically, yeah, let's go vote people out. And if you go back to the challenge itself, he didn't dominate the challenge. He worked with a team to get through the challenge. He got to the end when it became the solo part. He was out what?
Second. He was the second one out. Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was going to dominate you on every challenge. And every challenge is different. It's like it's set up to be different. So one person can't get an advantage. It's no different than Carson doing the puzzle at home. And he went up there and destroyed the puzzle. Now you got to vote somebody out. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. But would I've made that move? And also the edit kind of left a lot of people out of last night's episode. Was Caroline even there? Did she play?
Carolyn, yeah.
Carolyn was in the challenge, but she was only there and at almost a sense for comic relief because she couldn't get through it. But Heidi, unless she spoke in tribal and she told information about the idol, we really didn't see her. So is the editing so much so now we kind of know who's on the chopping block?
So I'm hoping that to Abe, to that point, I'm hoping that we find out this upcoming week what exactly went on with Jam Jam and Carolyn and Carson and their voting. I want to point out what Marion Alexandru said in the comments here, like that, he thinks that the conversation we didn't see was Jam Jam and Carson confirming with Danny that they're all voting for Franny so that Danny knew what the plan would be. Because, yeah, Carolyn voted with, I always get the tribe names mixed up. Carolyn voted with the Sokas.
And then Carson and Jam Jam voted with Ratu.
With Ratu, which is especially funny because Brandon had a line about like, well, whatever Jam Jam's doing, Carolyn's doing. So I don't think that it's an accident that the two of them voted differently. I assume that was on purpose, and I assume that there was a conversation there that we didn't see. So I'm really curious why they left those conversations out, and then if they're going to sort of flash back to that, because we've started to see them to do that now, of like wait to the next episode and then they'll show us those conversations that happened previously.
I'm sorry, great.
No, I was going to say, so I'm with you there. I think there has been quite a bit left out. I mean, we see Jam Jam oscillating, going, well, do I expose this plan? Do I, pull a double dirty on Danny? We don't see why he doesn't. So given the vote, we can kind of deduce what went on, but we don't see how he came to that conclusion. So perhaps there is a flashback that would be great, or a confessional that explains that, lays it out. I'd love to see that, right? Because I'd love to see the logic and reasoning from the players who were on board with the plan, who were, like Danny said, Jam Jam was a bit of a risk, and Jam Jam himself said he was a risk himself. I'd love to see from that perspective why he decided to pick the side that he did. I actually wanted to just touch back on something about Danny making a move at the time, and I was just thinking about it now while we were chatting. How much of the previous seasons do you think plays in Danny's mind? I mean, he's sitting with this idol. We know that the game is so twist heavy. At this stage, I mean, the audience knows there's no knowledge is power, but in the previous 3 seasons, there's been a knowledge is power. So does that factor into Danny's thinking? I mean, he's an astute player. Does he start thinking to himself, well, look, rumors are going to fly. People are going to narrow these down. They're going to narrow it down. And I might not have this idol in a day or two. People have been out here like
I mean,
twists and advantages are falling from the sky.
That's an argument to have is, are people going to start getting to the point where they are terrified to hold on to those idols and stuff because of advantages like knowledge is power, because like you said, advantages are being thrown out left and right. You don't know, like I could just imagine the fear you have with that thing in your pocket, because one, you're already battling the fear of not wanting to go home with it in your pocket. Now you're battling, well, we know this new era has been crazy and there's twists that can take my advantage away from me and yada yada. So it wouldn't shock me if Danny was to the point where he's like, you know what, why don't I just play it? Because he did seem very confident right off the bat. He was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm playing it for Franny tonight. It didn't really seem like he was questioning playing it. He was more questioning.
He did question playing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He was more questioning whether to play it for Franny or himself once Heidi came back and told him that everybody knew. But in terms of playing it in general, he seemed very confident that at that tribal council, he was going to play it for someone regardless of who it was.
I think his idol was still unknown. I think as long as you keep the idol information to yourself.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't anymore.
No.
Matt spoiled it. Matt spoiled it last episode. He told everybody, like, I'm 90% sure Danny has it.
Yeah.
Once we came, the tribes and stuff came together, started talking. But before that, when he initially found it, it was unknown. But again, it's never what's the right way to pay an idol. We get the hindsight 2020. We get to see that move actually worked, and now you have an ally and friend. I just think that he painted a big target on his back. But let's go to the challenge. And I meant
Hold on.
Wait, I wanted to ask Dino one other thing before we moved on, if that's cool. Dino, we're down to 9 people left at this point. Based on the way the game is going, the shifting power dynamics, but also a little bit the edit and what the producers are trying to tell us, who do you think is going to end up at the end at this point?
Oh, it's such a difficult one to answer. I think there's, I can make a case for.
If you're wrong, we don't come after you.
But before you answer, Dino, what we do before the season starts, we go through and we rack and stack how we think people are going to do. I just want you to let you know, Josh is on the fence for all 18 players. He didn't commit to any 18 players. So when you answer this, I just want you to know that information. That's all.
Abe still hasn't figured out that I was kidding that entire time.
Yeah.
You're the type of guy that goes to the roulette table and puts it on red and black and forgets that there's maybe like a green zero out there kind of thing. No, it's so difficult. So let's put it from a gameplay perspective. I am so impressed with Carson. Oh my word. For me, of the 3 pillars, social, strategy, and physical, social is probably the most important in getting yourself to the end, right? Tied in then with strategy, then physical. That's the way I see it. And I think Carson is incredible in the sense that he's got built up all these relationships. He's built up the rapport he needs and the trust he needs to be able to move and move within the groups as he needs all the way through to the end, right? And he's doing it in a way that keeps his threat level down. And he's doing that very intentionally, very cleverly. And he's young, he's 20. And that's not to sound patronizing. It does have an impact. There's this level of like life experience and whatnot, but he's really played into that. He's got this like younger brother kind of feel going for him that people are buying into. And man, I think he's playing it exceptionally well. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't get to the end or at least to the final 5, Carolyn, I know she seems volatile, but she's super aware. She might be this like epic character, but she seems so aware and so astute as well that I think that players might perceive her as a bit of this volatile non-entity that's, not necessarily so strategically adept, but where she is. And I think she has a shot at getting to the end, because she's been able to assert herself and make decisions for herself. So I think that's the side of me that wants to see them go through, and that's why I make a case. But I think players that haven't had as much screen time like a Lauren hasn't shown too much reason other than being in a core alliance, which is now crumbling, could go the distance too. But the reality is, this is Survivor. It's still absolutely anybody's game. We saw it with Gabler. You can't write a single person off. And like I said, I think you can make a strong case for a number of people getting to the end. Can you make as strong a case for a number of people winning it? Not necessarily, but I don't think we're that far in that you can write anyone off.
So you're putting all your eggs in the basket. See, this is smart. Smart people do this. They know to hedge their bets. And he's like, I'll give you Carson as like a potential, but then like everyone else can still win as well.
Wait. So Dino makes fun of me for hedging my bets preseason.
No,
I'm the kind of guy that doesn't play roulette. I play poker. So
he's got all the cards. Yeah.
I did see you playing Texas Hold'em, Dino.
Yeah. I play quite a bit of poker.
Oh
yeah.
man,
Anyway.
I can see you as a great poker player. I mean, he won the game, so he knows what he's doing. Okay, let's give Abe what he wants. He wants to get to this challenge.
Well, Dino made a good point on who we think based off of the remaining 9. I like Lauren's game. I like Carson's game, and I gotta put Jam in there. I mean, he has survived. Every time somebody wanted to vote him out, he has survived. And if you ever notice, when he comes back after being almost voted out, he just has love for everybody. I still love everybody. I know we had to pull somebody out. Glad it's not me, but I still love everybody. And he makes sure that everybody knows that. So it's pretty interesting that he is not the target right now. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see who gets voted out next Wednesday. That's gonna tell us the story.
All right, now let's get to what Abe wants to talk about, and it's this challenge. So we hear about this twist, and I'm thinking immediately, oh my gosh, can we not do a normal individual immunity challenge? And Survivor kind of did like a, hold on, Randy, hold on, wait, give us a second, because I actually did end up liking this. And I do have a question to go along with it. So basically they had to split into pairs. It wasn't a rock draw, so you actually had to discuss who you were going to pair with. And I thought that was super interesting because I saw a lot of people that I just thought were working as like a duo kind of get together here. You had Brandon and Kane, who we've seen them working side by side a lot. Jamie and Heidi have seen relatively close, even though they have that Soka Ratu thing going on, and they got together. I loved how Carson was super sick, and he's like, no one wants to be with me. And Carolyn's like, I'll be with you. Sure. So we got these pairs, and there was actually some strategy into this about who you want to be with for this challenge. And then they didn't know whether they'd be competing against each other or with each other. We found out at the challenge, it's basically in stages. We saw this happen last year. And then the end of the challenge is individual. I want to put this question out here for you guys. I think I understand what Survivor US is starting to do. Are they starting to do these paired challenges, these team individual immunity challenges to try to eliminate the challenge beasts who dominate all the challenges and win 4 or 5 individual immunities all season? Because you could make the argument that someone like Brandon, this big physical threat, or someone like Danny could go out there, especially with how casting has been. You've seen less big men, and with these like endurance challenges that they sometimes can be a little bit better at, you make the argument, who's going to compete against Danny and Brandon? Well, if you put them in teams or you put them in pairs, they've got to rely on other people, and they can't just go out and dominate this endurance challenge, yada, yada, yada. So that's the question I present to you guys. Do we think that CBS is doing this to try to limit, these big challenge beasts that just go on a run?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, if you want to have somebody eliminated, you pair up with them and you lose. That way you don't have to worry about them winning the immunity challenge at the end. You can use it as a technique.
Could go strategy, yeah.
Or you could pair with the person because I never thought Danny and Lauren was going to pair up together. Because she already knew Danny wanted to get her out, but they ended up pairing up together. And they end up actually being very competitive and making it to the end. So you have that concept as well. I think the biggest winner of the night, even though they didn't win or immunity or anything, was the relationship with Carson and Carolyn. Because
I've been saying, I just have to put it out there. I have to have a brag moment for a second. Everyone's been saying Carolyn and Jam are the duo. I don't think so. I said the moment that Carson got to the merge, he basically jumped in Carolyn's arms like she was like a mother to him. And I knew once I saw them pair up, I went, those two, I think, are the tightest pair in the game right now. I really do. Sorry to interrupt, Abe.
I will say she has that same energy. If you ever meet her in person, she has that same energy. So don't think, people's like, oh, she just on TV. No, she has that same energy in person. But I think if you pick somebody that's sick, and when you get sick out there, it's not like you can go to the doctor. You're gonna go through some sickness for a little while before they do something. So, and she was like, she basically risked her opportunity to be voted out by saying, I'll pair it with them because it's obvious that they're not going to finish. And it's just interesting. That's an interesting question.
Dino, something to add on here?
So, going back to were you saying you're trying to figure out what production's trying to do? I think if we take a step back, right, going to a 26-day format, it really speeds up everything, right? And there's a lot that I want to touch on from a format perspective, later on in our chat. But
yeah, we've got some questions for you.
One of the things is that it doesn't give players time to really play, right? Abe, you'll know this. I mean, you hit the beach day 1, day 2, challenge, tribal, gone. Bye. It just happens like in a flash, right? Whereas in the 39-day format, instead of following a 2-day cycle, you're following, generally, very speaking, a 3-day cycle, which means that every 3 days, there's generally at least one full day you get on the beach to sit around, just chat to people, build relationships, sit on things, sit on thoughts, let them fester, let the paranoia set in, let that one comment, that one wink, whatever, change your thought process, or you're having this really in-depth moment with somebody and you drop your guard and you say something you shouldn't have, or they do that to you, and that changes the game. Though that's what keeps a game fluid, and that's how relationships and change, or that's how these voting blocks or voting lines is. This is how they change along the game, is through these relationships that get built. But in this format, that's not happening, right? That's not given the chance to happen. Players are going, being blindfolded, put under gag order, being shipped off to challenges. That takes time, marked up. Then you get to go and do the challenge. Then you're demarked and put under gag. Then sent back to your camp. That takes hours out of your day. Then you've got like a little bit of time at camp, and then you same process off to tribal council. There's no real time for gameplay to play, and no real time to strategize, right? So that makes the game less fluid. So I think what productions try to do with these, particularly in the individual portion of the game, is they've realized that people are less likely to play a third game. They're going to stick to what they know. They're going to take the path of least resistance, and you're more likely to face begonging. So what they've done is they've created these twists to force, you get to a full-on merge, and this many people are at risk, and only this many people have votes, and that's through draws and picks and all this, whatever, all these floating dynamics that players don't really have proper control over. It brings elements of randomness to it, and they're trying to force that fluidity through decisions like that, which I think actually hinders the game. But I think that's as a result of this 26-day format in length. In terms of the twist that they did for the challenge yesterday, now I'm a big fan that every player should have the right and the right shot at playing for immunity, and I think that everyone has unless in circumstances, has a right to vote by nature at the tribal council. And I don't believe in these ongoing mass blocks of people being immune and min people being available, right? So first tribal council, anti. However, the way they shifted this, I was quite a fan of the way they did this, where it's like, okay, pair up. Now you're pairing up. Is there somebody I'm going to compete against or with? Hedge your bets. Now you've got to make a decision. There's social dynamics at play. Does this expose who you're tied to with? Does this expose what you think of people? Do you go to the challenge beast and try to pair up with them? It kind of it reveals. There's a decision-making process that gives up information to the social standing of the game. I like that. Then you get to compete, and then you still get to compete as an individual at the end for that necklace. As far as a twist for this individual immunity portion of the game goes, I'm not anti it. I think this is the best one that they've done in twist fashion, if there was going to be a twist. Sorry, I know I'd make these things long-winded, but I like to give context.
No, we love this, yeah.
How I get to the thoughts. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys think on my takes on that, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Let's compare timelines. Okay, let's go for your first vote out. So season 41, the first 2 votes out. We get up that morning, we get prepared, we're shipped off, we do some things in between. When you first see us do the first challenge on the boat, we do the first challenge on the boat. It's about midday. We finish that challenge up. We go to the island. What is it? That's you, Randy.
That's me. I wasn't doing anything.
We do so. Okay, here's the timeline. So we do the first challenge. We finish that challenge up. We go to the island. We meet for the first time. We do another challenge to get the flint. Everybody else goes works on the shelter. Then it gets dark. We get up the next day. We have probably about a half a day, a little less. We're doing some things in between. We go to the next challenge. We do that challenge, and that night we have the tribal council to vote off. To what you said earlier about seeing what happens in the middle, because of the more length you have, you get to see how all this stuff develops in the middle. So you get more invested in each player and how they get to that point of who we're going to vote out. Where that's Josh.
Sorry.
It's like, who is that? But you don't, in that timeline, we basically voted somebody out in less than a day, in 2 days. It's almost like a day and a half. If you take out, we got to sleep a little bit at night. Where, Dino, in your season, how much time did you have from the time you arrived to the actual vote out?
So our vote outs, our first 4 vote outs, day 3, 5, 8, and 11, if I remember it off the top of my head, right? So we've got 4, stand to be corrected a day here or there, but 3, 5, 8, and 11, I think is roughly correct. That means our 4 vote outs happened over those 11 days. And I think by this stage in the game, you've already got 6 people gone in season 44, right? So, I mean, there's a huge difference. I mean, like for the start of the game, we hit the beach. Fantastic, like early-ish morning, that all starts. Great. Reward challenge to start the game off. Fantastic. You go back to camp, you do all those pleasantries, build shelter, fail at everything. Fantastic. Spend your first cold night. Wake up the next morning, have a day. And it's either going to be one of two things: either have the immunity challenge and then have the day and a half before tribal council on day 3, or have day 2 to get to know each other, build those relationships, see where things go. Day 3, have the immunity challenge and then go to tribal. I think we did it day 3, we went to immunity challenge, then had tribal that night. But you have that time in between in those cycles to build, form, change those relationships. And it is exponential, like 13-day difference. I mean, that's like 33% of the time. Yeah, 33% less than what our game is, right? And that time is valuable, and it's huge, and it's impactful. So I think it makes a massive, massive, massive difference, and it's a huge hindrance for your good players, because your good players use that time to play through.
Yeah, because I think, to me, and not to belabor the thought, it was trash to vote out 2 players on the very first vote. And then for the remainder 42, 43, 44, we only went to 1 because it gave us, you know what, it just leaves a sour taste in our mouth from our season because you kind of experimented on us. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Josh, I got to get you in this conversation here. So take it where you want to about the challenge as a whole. I will throw out the pairs that we had were Carolyn Carson, Jam Franny, Danny Lauren, Heidi, Jamie, and then Brandon and Kane. So that's why there were some interesting pairs there. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about here about the format, and also what Survivor decided to do here with like this pairs going to more of like a shorter individual challenge here today.
I think one of the things that Survivor has lacked over the years has been some of the challenges that they did in the early seasons, which were designed purely to poke at the social dynamics. The most famous of the one where you had your 3 strikes and you're out, and it was let's poll everybody and, see who is the outcast of the group or who's the most least liked or whatever, and somebody would get hurt feelings about it on purpose. And they've gone away from that. So I think this was a little bit of the producers, as Dino hinted, because you have to play that social game of like, okay, who am I going to pair up with my friend? I don't want somebody to feel hurt if I go to pair up with somebody else and they thought we were really good allies. So there's the social aspect to it. So I wonder if that sort of played into it of like, okay, let's see in what ways we can get people off their social footing a little bit without sort of outright having bullying taking place. And then I think I like that it then is an unknown of, okay, we don't know exactly what we're in for. Do you choose somebody who's got your equal strengths, right? Do you just go up with the 2 strongest people, or do you pick somebody who's good at puzzles in case there's a puzzle involved, or, how do you pair up that way? So I know I like the twist overall. And like Dino said, it doesn't end with, 6 people being immune, right? Ultimately, we get down to 1 immunity. And I like the fact that what you needed to be good at over the first couple portions of the challenge was different from what you needed to be good at.
I knew the big guys were in trouble there. I'm like,
Yeah.
Lauren's definitely going to take this.
No, I thought it was good overall. My question was before, and we don't really need to go into this too much, but my question was going to be to Dino, if you're out there, let's say you'd have to take somebody's, whatever. You're out there, there's 11 of you, and let's say somebody's going to get left out of this challenge. If you're out there playing this game and they come to you and say, pick a pair, you can't, the social dynamics that we have to leave out because you wouldn't have any social dynamics. Who would you go for? Let's assume you had equal social bonds with people. Like, would you have thought, let me pick the most physically strong person? Like, what would your inclination have been?
I think, man, if so it's like,
I know it's a tough hypothetical.
Somebody like Matt, shame that he was medevaced, but if he was still in the game, I'd gravitate to somebody like that because he's adept at all areas of challenges. He's shown that he's hard as nails. He'll push himself as hard as he can. He's got the dexterity. He's clearly sharp. He'll have done puzzles. He'll have been quite well researched. So he would be one of those like really good hedge my bets. I could compete with him in a number of different types of challenges. And I'd also fancy my chances that, while he's good at a number of things, I could potentially still maybe pip him in a couple of areas if I need to, if we do have to go head to head. Danny, physical machine, I'd love to pair up with like a Danny, but I'd be worried that if there was an endurance component where we had to go head to head and it's kind of like a knockout, that, the physicality, I wouldn't be able to compete with the physicality, and I'd really be hedging my bets on something else if I had to compete against him. Carolyn, I'd probably stay far away from because she's been terrible for challenges so far. If I was looking to win this challenge, right? In our season, there was a point where we had to pair up right at Final Four for a reward, and I didn't want Phil to pick me because of the social dynamic, but he was obviously going to pick me because we made sense. We ended up using the challenge, yeah. But I think if I go back to when I was in the game, I put what does this do for my game socially? If I don't win immunity, because the odds of winning immunity are actually relatively low, no matter how strong you are. So it's what position does this leave me in if we have to go to a vote and all bets are off, So I'd play the social card and go, what's my best bet socially? What makes me the least risky, or what lowers my threat level the most? So that's where I would probably base my decision on, especially at this point in the game.
It would have been very funny if Carson's like throwing up and he's like, "Oh, no one wants to pair up with me," and Carolyn's like, "I'll pair up." He's like, "No, not you."
I think the opposite, Randy. I think he probably was like, "Oh, perfect. Carolyn won't be able to get." You notice I changed my name because I thought that was just a hilarious moment. I thought he paired up with her because he was thinking, "Oh, great! If she's just won't get through the net, I won't have to go in after her."
He's so much better of a competitor than I am, because when Carolyn finished, I was like, just don't get in the mud. That would be my argument. I'd be like, Carolyn, yay, but we're not winning this. They're literally digging it out, and I am not getting mud all over me if I don't have to.
That was really funny.
Can we just talk about, before we go to break here, can we just talk about some of the funny moments this episode, like Carolyn screaming and Carson in the background just being like, "You got this. You're doing great." And then we have to bring up Danny farting. Honestly, the ballsiest pull my finger move of all time. No. You know that it's easy to unlock sassy, pissed off Jeff, and you just go, "Hey, Jeff," and then let one rip. Which, bravo production for putting a kind of sound fart sounding sound effect on, because that was definitely, there's no mic down there. We have to talk about some of those funny moments that happens in this episode. And
who was peeing on their season? Was it Australia? Or was it
no? Phil peed on himself.
Yeah.
No. So this is Danny premeditated for points for whatever, for TV 100%, because Phil. That sorry to go back to our season, but that challenge, they set up incorrectly. They were supposed to do it according to heights and reach. And when we got there, it was very obviously incorrect. So we sat on the decks of these things for 2 hours. We had like 40 opportunities to relieve ourselves, pee off the side of the deck, what. Full purpose, he held it in. And within 2 minutes of Nico going, survivors ready, go. Phil's like, oh, sorry, Nico. And he pees all over. I'll be like, dude, you did that.
Yeah,
so
Josh,
perfect.
if you can't envision this, it was something to watch. Literally, they're hanging over. It was the one where you guys are like propped up hanging over the water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just starts peeing. It was hilarious. I just wanted
credit to Danny because he knows it's going to make good TV and he's playing for that. He's a fantastic player. He's astute. He's playing the meta game. He's playing the production game. Full credit to him. Love to see it. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
But to Jeff Probst, I mean, oh my God, the kahunas on this guy to do it to the host. I'm sure Jeff's going to look back and be like, yeah, that's what Survivor is all about.
Jeff's nowhere near you anyway. Jeff is on the other side. Chill.
The last thing I'll say is, Dino, for a minute there, I didn't know which Matt you were speaking on, whether that was the Matt who is medevac or the Matt that we saw last night that looks a lot like Carson. For those of you who don't get that joke, there is an instance where that looks like a lot like Kane. I messed up the joke. But for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I didn't realize this at first. I actually had someone send this to me last night and said, like, made a joke about, I guess Matt, the next twist is Matt has now jumped back in the game, but in the form of Kane. And I didn't get it whatsoever. I'm like, well, that's a weird thing to say. And then it took me a while to look at the picture. And basically last night when Kane was giving a confessional, they had Matt. Like, I'm pretty sure it was all Matt's information. Pretty sure. Which
isn't that a secret scene?
It wasn't.
No, it was like 6 minutes into the episode.
On the main episode.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I didn't recognize it. Let me just tell you guys how crazy that is, being someone in the acting and the entertainment side of things. This is not just like when I edit these podcasts or when I used to edit it before we went live. I would watch it once and make sure there was no issues, and then I'd upload. No, this is like a professional team that watches it over numerous times to make sure it's all good. And the fact that's almost like the Starbucks cup being in Game of Thrones. Like, it's just, you don't know how that happens. So I thought that was hilarious. But we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break here. When we get back, we're going to answer your fan questions. So if you have any questions, last minute to get them in on Twitter, Instagram, or our YouTube live chat. And then we're also going to name the player of the episode. We will be right back.
What's up, everybody? Coach Benway, the Dragon Slayer.
Hey guys, this is Steven Fishback.
I mean, I'm definitely going to win.
I'm ready to bring it.
This is amazing.
Team coach here, out to a quick lead.
Oh my God, wait.
Oh, I knew it was going to be this.
It is not going to take much to derail a party.
Are there swaps in this game? They kind of suggested that there were twists.
Oh my gosh,
Each party is going to be eliminating one player.
54, but I'm full of piss and vinegar.
I'm not voting for you. I don't want you gone.
In 5 seasons of Expedition Online, this is the first time we've ever seen a crossroads like this.
I'm about to be screwed.
And that was the most traumatic thing I've been through. And I went to a funeral today.
Oh my God, Maury just came back.
I'm gonna be so mad, Rose.
I think he's scared of me.
Buddy, you gotta go.
Bring them into your circle of trust.
This is where great players shine. It's basically the dollhouse strategy here.
Hi, Survivor Now podcast listeners. I am Katie from KT Designs, better known as Katie Tedesco Art on both Instagram and Etsy. I have been designing and selling Survivor products for over 7 years at my Etsy shop, including replicas like hidden immunity idols and Survivor trading cards with all of the players' stats on the back. I am so grateful for Survivor Now for giving me this shout out and helping me reach even more superfans. I love listening to their podcast. So if you are looking for some really unique reality TV products for yourself or to give a superfan in your life, come check out my Etsy shop at www.etsy.com/shop/KatieTedescoArt.com.
We are back. Yes. And we have voted off Josh. Yeah. Josh Josh had to run, so
Josh was changing his
Vac. Was it a techie vac or what? Like,
It wasn't. It was.
Josh was changing his thing too many times. He didn't know who he was going to be with, so he's
No,
good.
so Josh is still in basketball season, and he still covers basketball. So he's like, guys, I got to run. But he did let us know who his player of the episode is. So we will get to that. But first, I'm going to change it up this week. So I'm going to go ahead and we can go around the campfire, ask us all your burning questions. I've got some already pulled up here. And Dino, people wanted to ask you, like all the questions are Dino. So we'll get to the first question here from Reality TV with Dan 2023 on Instagram. Hey, Dino, do you see Tika voting differently as a way to hide their unity and stay undetected by others? And we talked about this a little earlier where Jam and Carson voted with Ratu, and then Carolyn voted with Soka. Do we think this was accident? Do we think this is something they talked about and said, hey, let's disguise that we're working as a trio and kind of keep playing both sides here?
I think it's exactly that. I think they disguised their play. I think it was discussed. Players can get quite precious about voting histories and voting the right way, etc., etc. They knew Danny was prepared to play an idol for Franny, yet they still put Franny's name down. They're in with both sides. They've shown they're good on one side by not giving up information and blowing up the plan. They've shown they're good on the other side by being left out of the vote and voting incorrectly and voting the way they said they were going to vote originally. So I think they played it perfectly. And I think it was calculated and pre-discussed.
I mean, Abraham, we got to talk a little bit about Tika. We didn't talk enough about them, and I'm going to talk even more about them when I get to my player of the episode, I believe. But I mean, I think Tika is in a prime position in this game.
I gotta say that if anybody derails Tika, it's gonna be Carson. I think that.
Oh, Dino disagrees. I think that was a quick setup.
No. Sorry, that was interesting. I'm very interested to hear why you say that.
Because if you go back to where Carson's talking to Danny, and Carson says, "Yeah, Heidi told us that you had an idol." Sometimes he overplays. You got to know. Sometimes just don't say anything. And if they watch him and they say, "Okay, you know what? Carson is really moving between both of the tribes, and he's not going either way." Because Jam is just living. You're not gonna worry about Jam because he survived a few votes. He's like, hey, I love everybody. I'm here. His social game is not what you're looking at. But Carson's he fumbled with Brandon. He gave some information with Brandon in a couple episodes back where he was like, Carson, why'd you say that? Because they was voting for Kane and he tipped Kane off that he was voting for him. So I think he needs to be. I want him to see that, yeah, you do have the advantage. Nobody's really focusing on you three. You're the younger player. Jam is the great player to be, socially. And Caroline is just that player. She doesn't fall into any category. She's just hyper out there, and you kind of overlook her for now. But remember, she does have an idol. But I think if anything gets Carson, is that he overplays his hand.
Abraham, you read my mind. Before you answer, Dino, that's actually the next fan question that we have. This is from Will, who couldn't join us this week. He asks, do you believe that Tika playing the middle will catch up with them? And then in parentheses, I think Carson's going very soon. So I just had to throw that out there because it kind of goes with Abraham's point here.
When you put it like that and you validate like that, I mean, it does make me think differently. I've probably had like heart eyes for Carson for a while.
I do too.
So
I
probably,
do as well, yes.
my views are probably quite biased, but I mean, when you look at it like that, so maybe I'm thinking I don't see Carson intentionally blowing up Tika, perhaps mistakenly, whereas I see Jam as more of the risk to intentionally sabotage and just go, well, I just want to be safe, and jump ship and go on his merry way. Of the three starting tribes that are left there, do you think they're the weakest bonded as a trio?
I'm
a
little nervous. I'm just a little nervous about them because a week ago I would have said, yes, Tika is in prime position. I don't know, and I'm concerned where Jam fits in this situation. Because like I said, I've been saying that I think Carson and Carolyn are, I think they're closer than Carolyn and Jam Jam. But Jam Jam, to me, he's the biggest free agent left in the game because he seems like he's going to everyone and talking to everyone. And I still don't know if he's gotten over, even though he says he has, I still don't know if he's gotten over Carolyn and the whole idol play. And I think that's still in the back of his mind. So I'm a little nervous about that. Sorry, my work chat, my actual work chat is blowing up and annoying me. So I'm going to mute this real fast. But I'm a little, that I had to put my 2 cents in. I'm a little concerned about that going forward.
But if you had to
actually lies.
If you had to vote today, to me, Jam Jam would get my votes because he's the only one that survived tribal council and comes back. Everybody else has been gone. He survived, will vote on 3 times now and survived and come back. He's come into the merge, survived and come back, and they're trying to utilize him. No one else really has anything they could say right now because they haven't survived the vote. They either got voted out and didn't come back. They didn't have. We did a shot in the dark early in the season, so we didn't have to worry about that again yet. I just like Jam Jam's play right now. I think Carson, and I'm with you, Dino. I think if he makes it to the final 5, he has a good chance of winning, but he has to get to the final 5.
And the last question I have for Dino before we name our players of the episode is from Yes Sir Ice Queen, also known as Ian. We've had him as a guest on Survivor Social. Dino, what do you believe distinguishes Survivor South Africa from Survivor US? And that's, I mean, going off of that as well, I can't forget this other question that we had. Let me see if I can pull it up here on Facebook. I said we had a lot of questions. This is from Phil Russell, maybe going on about the format. And I said I was going to ask you about that as well. Yesterday, another successful international survivor, we'll leave him unnamed, but he did go on a podcast, commented on a podcast about U.S. Survivor to the effect that casting, in quotes, game bots and people with interesting backstories, but not interesting personalities, was what is making the new era terrible. Interested to hear Dino's thoughts on U.S. characters or lack thereof. Yeah, I won't name the castaway, but they went on a fellow podcast. Dino might know who I'm talking about, and said that the biggest problem was the people they were casting, because in the end, it's going to be them making the moves. So we'll combine those 2 questions into a shorter question about the format, what can be fixed, and how it compares to Survivor South Africa. What's the difference between the 2?
So our producers, super fans of the game. I mean, LaRue Buerta, EP, creative director. He auditioned to be on season 2 of Survivor, was rejected, started working on he actually made it all the way to the end. But his now husband worked for Mnet, and because the relationship was too close, there was a conflict of interest, so he was rejected. Then he started working as a content producer on season 3, and he revived it from season 6. He was the driving force behind reviving it, and he's been the driving force ever since. So there's a purist Survivor fan in him, and he, although there's a big team around him and it's a culmination of a lot of people's works, like he's like the custodian of our franchise. And because he's a purist at heart and because he's a fan at heart, a lot of love and care is put into the game and the story. So I'm not saying that there's no love and care in the US, but our production really cares about the people. They really care about telling an accurate story. They're not just about, they want to make good TV. They're there to make good TV, but they also want to tell a good story. So they want, by the time you get to the end of the season, they want you to understand why people went when they did, how people got to where they were. Why did this person at the end get the votes that they did or didn't? Or, they really want you to have a really good overview of, as accurate as possible with the time that they have, a really good story, right? So they're storytellers. Australian Survivor is about big TV moments, big theatre. They really don't care about most of their cast. They'll purple 80% of them, give you 6 characters, shove those phenomenal 6 characters down your throat all season. It really, I think, speaks to a really big casual audience, more specifically, I think, because there's TV moments, and those TV moments, oh my Lord, they're fantastic. They're phenomenal.
I don't want to say I'm a casual fan, but I don't want to say I'm a casual fan, but definitely.
It's a good moment.
Absolutely in love.
I'm not saying exclusively caters to casuals, but I think it is more appealing to the casuals. Whereas like your bigger fans, your super fans, people who love the strategy and the understanding behind it, they look for a little bit more than just that, right? but my lord, those TV moments are huge. US Survivor at the moment is feeling very like cookie cutter, sausage factory, run of the mill. Like it's feeling a bit overproduced. It's, I think, Larue puts it right. I think they're having a bit of a midlife crisis now.
That is the best way I've heard it so far. What they definitely
44, yeah, 44.
I know this is Dino's question, but I did just want to add on to that comment and say, I have been thinking about this. They are so scared, and I don't know if it's CBS getting into the writers' heads and being like, look, we have to have something new if we're going to keep you on TV. But like, they are so scared that if they don't change it up, people are going to stop watching, when in reality, people are going to stop watching because you changed it up. There was no reason to change it up. Yes, you need to invent some new twists, but in terms of changing the format and, shortening the days and to make it a faster game and giving them less stuff, and then all these advantages and idols mixed into that, they're trying too hard, Dino. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I agree 1,000%.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. However, do I think it comes from a bad place? Not at all. I think they care a lot about their product, what they're putting out there. I think Jeff cares immensely about Survivor. I mean, he is Father Survivor himself. I think it's his child, it's his baby. He. Maybe the baby's struggling to get off his couch. It's now a 40-year-old, stuck at home at the moment. It's, you're a bit disappointed in it, but like he loves it to death. So I don't think there's any ill intent here. They're doing their best to try and make it as entertaining and fun as possible, right? But I think it's gotten to the stage where you've got such a long history of the game being a certain way, and small changes to the game every so often or over a period of time was a good thing for the game because it kept it fresh, it kept it from becoming stale, which is the same thing I said, just using different words. I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but and it helped the game progress and it gave the game longevity. So change actually gave Survivor longevity, and now there's probably just a bit, they're trying too many things at once. I do believe though that they're astute enough to take that into account. They've given it a fair trial. They'll probably continue to give it a fair trial, and I don't think they'll be scared to change back to certain things. Maybe they've pushed the boundaries too far. They're going to find where those boundaries are, what the audience likes, what it doesn't like, and they're going to refine that product again. But they definitely have. I don't think they've got bad intentions at all. I think it will come right. I think it will come right.
I like to add on to what Dino is saying. In preparation, when I got selected to be on the new, I didn't know, first of all, everybody was on 41 didn't know there was a new era of Survivor coming. So I like the fact that they were changing things, but we didn't find that out until we actually arrived there. The production team that you meet, they're vested in the success of the show. They're great. Even when you go through the whole interviewing process, the evaluation process, even the meeting of everybody, they're evaluating you to see if you're a storyteller. They want to be, can you engage with each other? Can you engage? Is that group of people the right group of people? And sometimes it's experiment because some people don't show you who they really are until you see them in a different light. But I will say, meeting the productions, talking to them, great group. They're invested in making Survivor the best show and continue the growth of Survivor. Now, saying that, was there a bunch of hiccups? There were plenty of hiccups. But as you see from 41 to 44, they've continued to wash out hiccups and try new things. Because coming into Survivor, I just assumed, looking at all previous Survivor episodes to get prepared for it, there was going to be two tribes, or there was going to be more people. But to Dino's South Africa seasons and to Australia seasons, the viewer has to get invested in the players, and you give up that when you cut the time down. There is no way to get invested in the players because you don't have that much time. We basically only look at US Survivor for the challenge, the vote out. That's all we look at for. We don't see the relationships in the middle, nor do we see them develop enough to say, I like a Carson. We're just picking one or two things out really quickly and saying, I like them, where if you give out 30 more minutes and show camp life and see the development. There was a part in the challenge where we saw the challenge come to an end. We saw Lauren win, and we saw Danny walk off. And we saw Jam Jam come up to Danny, and he was visibly like, just get off me. I need a moment. We want to see that. We want to see that type of interaction, that type of relationship, because it only takes a little thing for you to say, I want to vote somebody off. Well, I want to see that happen so I know why Jam Jam wants to vote him off next episode. But we only got like a snippet of it, so we don't see that develop. And I think they need to try to get a balance in that. How do we balance giving you more of the players, but also keeping that core thing of Survivor? And it's just been it's been kind of up and down. But I will say this, as a player and a person that can look and see what changes have been made, I'm glad that they've made these changes. I'm glad they continue to. The Birdcage was introduced this season. I thought it was a great dynamics to the game. But it's just, you're right. What do you give up to get, and what do you have to bring back to keep? You got to figure it out.
Yeah. So sorry, Randy.
Oh no, go ahead.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think, I mean, to go to the changes, I think a non-negotiable for me is to go back to a 39-day format. For me, the 3 starting tribes, so small tribes, I don't like it. I think it prevents you even further from exploring tribe dynamics, because now you split amongst 3 tribes versus 2 tribes. The pure numbers makes the game interesting and more fluid, even pre-merge. A tribe swap, a proper tribe swap, changes the dynamics, and then thereafter going into merge with these mixed up relationships. What stands longer? What's more important? Which one holds more ground? Whatever. That is super interesting stuff, and that creates like a fluid game without the pressures of like advantage. So you can still inject new twists, new things, new ways to shake things up without making that the core focus, right? You're talking about a bit about casting. I think their casting's been great. I think they're casting phenomenal characters. I mean, I've loved the 41, 42, 43, 44 casts. I think they've done a phenomenal job. I do feel that perhaps they could do, they can cast a few of the older school type, where we're casting very fan heavy casts at this stage, where you can maybe step back. Yeah. And I say this as a fan, I want to see fans on the show. I really do. I love seeing fans on the show, right? But I do want to see those people who haven't watched the show and who aren't massive fans of the show, who aren't as, I don't want to say game botty, because a lot of these players are like emotional, but
just want to win $1 million. They don't care about like the play. That's what we need. Like, I'm so sick and tired of people getting eliminated and then like clapping for them. Like, Matt was smiling on the jury bench, and someone said, why is he smiling when he just got voted out of $1 million game? Like, bring back the pettiness.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I personally, so I'm not like, I'm very much, there's no need to be malicious. There's no need for feuds. I'm very much like, personally, I'm like, you know what? I can respect the game because I'm this massive fan of the game. Do I want to see 20 of me play the game? No. It'd be boring as hell, dude. Like,
I think it'd be amazing, but
no ways, dude. Like, you want to see like players who aren't as socially aware necessarily. Not that we're saying everyone's socially aware, but you want to see players who make those missteps, who don't understand the game, who make errors, clear and obvious errors, and you sit there like smashing your like hands against your face in the couch, going, why? It is so, like. Yeah, and players who think this is all about a physical game, and the values for the game are like completely skewed compared to somebody else's values for the game. So I do want to see a bit more of a mix. But do I like the people that they've been casting on the whole? Oh, absolutely. I think that's the shame that there is because they're casting such great players, such great characters, and they're not giving them the opportunity to play. They're freaking herding them into a particular framework and structure that doesn't give them this ability to move freely, and they're telling them what to do and directing them way too much. Whereas if you kind of like let them off their leads, man, all chaos would ensue, and they'd shock you and surprise you.
You're right. I wouldn't go to 39 days if you're not going to, but I would increase it from 26 up to, let's say. Here's the thing about it is that's what they
go to 39 days. I don't know why we can't. I think it's a financial reason. Like, just go to 39 days. You've done it for decades.
But here's the thing: 39 days with 3 tribes of 3, it's just too long. You got to either come back together and bring 2 tribes.
Yeah,
because we stuck with the same thing. We just got a longer period of time, and you kind of gap it out. Because every day, so we'd wake up that morning, that night, every other day, the next day we would have somebody coming that got voted out. And you're like, okay, I never really got to meet or got to, and it's funny. Here's the funny part. People will meet me in person, and they'll be like, "We didn't think you were that funny." And these are people on my tribe. They was like, "We didn't think you was that funny. You never seemed like you showed it." Because one, we got up early that morning. I didn't eat anything. I done competed all day. I'm exhausted, and we still have to build a shelter. I'm not gonna really be the most bubbly person in the world. I'm being like, let's just try to get some sleep. So you never develop the relationship within your own tribe, which you need those tools to say who we're gonna vote out, why we gonna vote out. I didn't ask one of the players until a year and a half later, why he voted for me. It was a year and a half later before I even wanted to talk about it. And he was like, "Well, you were stronger than me, and I wanted the tribe to depend on me." And I was like, "What? I'm older than you by 20 years." But again, I would have rather that developed and let that be either we work together, or we work against each other. But we just had a short amount of time.
I'm going to have to interrupt here just to say, Alex, do the Twitter questions. I don't see them. I've been checking, so we'll try to figure that out, but I just don't see them today. I'm actually the one that's running out of time here. We are running a bit long, and usually I'd be down for that.
What
I do work tonight, so I got to get off pretty soon. But before we do that, I do want to go ahead and ask. Last week, Lauren won Player of the Week. We implemented our new voting tactic where we will give you options of who we think are Player of the Weeks, and then we will post them on Instagram for you guys to vote on them. So, Dino, I'll start with you, my friend. Who do you think should be Player of the Week? There's a lot of great options here.
Yeah, so do I think this person ends up in the best position at the end of this week? No. But I definitely think, Danny had a plan. He set that plan in motion. It nearly derailed, but it didn't. It executed on point. He had a good read. There were reasons why that could have gone completely haywire, and it didn't. And I think he is highly astute. So on that basis, I'm going to say Danny, Player of the Week. It seems like an obvious choice, but I don't necessarily think he comes out of this in the best position, as even though that's contradictory. But he had a plan. He managed to execute the plan. Yeah, he had a plan. He managed to get that plan in motion, heard the cats, and the vote went the right way, and it was executed perfectly. So well done to him. That's not an easy thing to do, and it's a very ballsy thing to do, to play your idol for somebody else. I cannot stress that enough. Oh my Lord, it's crazy.
I can't even imagine like the butterflies in your stomach, or not even butterfly. You get what I'm trying to say. The nerves in your stomach that happen. Abraham, do we agree?
Hold on, let's get Josh's. Let's get Josh's for the.
Oh, I did forget about Josh. Josh told me Danny 75% because of the fart and 25% because of the idol play. So, I mean, that was Thank you for reminding me. But Josh also thinks that it should be Danny. Abraham, are you hopping on the Danny train?
No. I'm gonna go with Lauren.
Ooh, going back to back, maybe.
I love challenges. I love all the challenges from South Africa to Australia to US. I love a good challenge. And anybody that can compete and beat their fellow castmates in a challenge. She beat some good players. Danny is an excellent player. And Danny was visibly shook when he didn't win. I like that. Because now, you never know who can win a challenge. And I love that. So for my Player of the Week, gonna be Lauren.
I'll play the differing factor here again, because I want you guys to have more than two options. I'm going to throw out Jam Jam's name again. And last week he was up for a nomination because of his social game that kept him in the game. This week I'm going to throw his name out there because of his social game that not only took him from the bottom, he's been on the bottom and a vote now for a few weeks, and he didn't get any votes at this tribal council. And I think that's a play onto his social game. I think he did great lining himself up with many options going forward. Yes, he could have went to Ratu and told them the plan. He didn't, but then still decided to vote with Ratu, and he was part of that plan. So he was able to stay face with the powers at Ratu and the powers at Soka, and he still has Carolyn and Carson who trust him as well. I think Jam Jam's in a great position. Like I said earlier, I think he's a huge free agent in this game. And I think moving forward, he's got a lot of options on how he wants to get to the end. And if he does get to the end, I think he's going to have a story, an underdog story. Will that be enough? I don't know. Before we wrap up here, I do have a couple things to let you guys know of what's coming up as Abraham gets a phone call here. It's going to be perfect timing. So tomorrow, Survivor Social will be on. with David and Tegwith. They're planning about noon tomorrow. If you guys want to check back on our Total Drama After Dark cast assessment, that is available now. Yes, we are covering the entirety of Total Drama Island, the reboot that came out this year. You can join myself and David. And yes, we got the Total Drama treatment as well. So that is available. And the last time I'll advertise this, we did get to sit down with the man, the myth, the legend, the poppy, or whatever his shirt said, Jerry Gelch, runner-up of Survivor Australia, Heroes versus Villains, after the game, is available now on our YouTube page. So, yes,
hey,
you guys
Jerry's a great guy.
You guys can check out all of that content there. Another news I'll put out, we'll talk more about it a little later on a show. But Jeff Probst has talked about sequestering the jury, separating them, because we've had 3 blowout wins in a row. So he's talked about separating the jury potentially, making sure they don't have any interaction so they can't influence one another. I'll just put it out there, gentlemen. I'll give you a quick comment if you want to add on to this. I'll just put it out there. I don't think that's going to fix anything. I think the jury's still going to influence each other. And isn't that the point of a jury, to talk and discuss who they think should win? That Jeff is trying to think of ways to make, like you said, Dino, make TV, overproduce it, because we've had 3 blowout wins in a row. I mean, Dino,
I like to be first, Dino. I hate it. Look, and I'm gonna use artwork. You see the picture behind me? We have nothing to do in Ponderosa but be with each other. Nothing. So,
imagine taking that away.
Now, what are we gonna do besides sit and talk with each other and be with each other? Because literally, you have the people that are there, the staff that does whoever the staff does. Then you have the team that takes care of us to make sure if we got something happens. But other than that, it's just us. So what would you sequester them to do? To sit back in a room and just kind of sit there? I think that would be worse. And
just think about how they got eliminated. That wouldn't be healthy mentally wise either.
You're right, Randy. Because here's the thing about it is, I don't know about for Dino, because Dino is a winner. But for us that wasn't a winner, well, no, I'm gonna go to the first Dino, not the new Dino. I need the old Dino. When you're voted out, all you do is replay the game, and it consumes you. And you really don't want somebody to be by themselves, and they're just consumed by, man, what could I did differently? Maybe I should have done this. And then when you add another player, I gotta go talk to him. Why'd you vote me out? What was the reason you voted? And it's just, sometimes it can be a little contentious, but I think it's a bad idea to separate people once they've gone through that experience, because it does have a positive and a negative to it. That's my 2 cents.
Dino, anything to add on here?
So on that, definitely, traditionally pre-merge South Africa from season 7, before you would fly out 48 hours, you'd be home, right? If you were pre-merge. Season 8, you got a few days decompression, and depending on what the psychologist felt, you'd be there between 3 to 6 days, maybe 7 or 8 days, right? But you'd get a chance to see the other players come in at where Ponderosa eventually was, and you got to bond with these players, form friendships. I mean, that's how Carla and I bonded. We never met each other in the game. We became really, really good friends and really good support systems for each other going forward from there. So you still take something really epic away from the game, and it's a big part of the healing process, right? From the jury perspective, I think it's a great way for juries to share stories, expose truths, all the things that you didn't necessarily know come to light. They make you mad, they make you sad, they make you happy, you know, all the things that the jury is supposed to feel. I think that you're more likely to see a shift if you go back to like a final 2. I think a final 2 is probably a bit more competitive, particularly if you're seeing seasons after seasons repeating the final 3 format. I think a final 2 is probably a bit more competitive. I've also got views on Fire at 4 and how that changes the game, but I think there's a lot of small steps. There's a lot of small steps along the way in the game that can change, that will keep it competitive at the end. But I don't think sequestering the jury is a good idea. I mean, we're really sad as fans that we've lost Ponderosa videos, and now the jury's going to be missing out on that experience, human-wise. And I think it's not going to help. And I don't think you're going to get an accurate representation of the game either. So maybe those blowout votes should be blowout votes, and they're rightfully blowout votes, and that's why they are blowout votes. That's what you want. You want a fair game. Maybe now you're going to shift it, and you're not going to get blowout votes. It's going to be hotly contested, but it's not actually going to be as fair a playing field. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I think now, if you really want to get it spicy, what you should do is show some of Ponderosa. Show how people act at Ponderosa once they get voted out. Because they used to do that. They used to show a little bit of when you get voted out. Add that to be like life after the vote. And say, okay, now you enter Ponderosa. And you really see how people are, because the show is basically over for them and how they greet you. And Dino's right. Why'd you blindside me? Why'd you vote for me? And see when you introduce them back into a small part of society, how they react to it, and film that and put it on TV. People be like, oh, goodness, what happened?
I mean, make it a Paramount Plus exclusive. We've been saying this. Well, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can check us out on Instagram at Survivor Now Podcast or Twitter at Survivor Now Pod. You can check us out on Twitter, myself, Abraham, and Dino. Our social media tags are literally by our names, so we don't have to explain that anymore. Dino, I'm not saying you know anything about the Survivor South Africa production, but I mean, the fans have been killing me to ask, when are we expecting a Survivor South African season soon? I know you might not be able to say anything, but what's your take on all of it? Because we would love to see Survivor South Africa back out there.
Let me just see if I can find the official statement. If I can't, I'll do it off the top of my head.
Well,
he's can't find the official one, but essentially, it is on ice. It has not been renewed. LaRue has said that they are in production, are going ahead and designing and conceptualizing and creating new seasons going forward. So they are in production in a sense that they're being created, but there's not necessarily a custodian to go and take that forward as such. So as and when I would keep an eye on the social pages, as and when there's announcements, basically as and when our own production knows, fans will know. So it's on us, very sadly, but I think Afrikaans is still at the helm. They've got it, they've got their hand there, so it's in good hands, and there's still a bright future for Survivor SA when that time comes.
That's all we can give you guys.
Can't wait to cover that.
You guys, I can't tell you guys how many questions I've gotten on social media page. When are you covering Survivor South Africa? Are you covering Survivor South Africa this summer? I love it that it is so loved. Dino, I know I'm like, it is so loved, but let me just tell you guys, there's your answer. I know just as much as you guys do. While I do have an in with exit interviews and that side of things, I don't have an in when it comes to when the season's going to air and stuff. So that's the only answer I can give you is Dino might be a little closer. I'm like on this step. Dino's on this step, and then production is way up here. So Dino, I mean, again, man, thanks. Sorry we had to rush towards the ending here. I'm actually the one. Usually I'm the one who's like, let's go 2 hours, but I'm the one having to rush today. But Dino, I mean, we have been so excited to get you back on, man. And absolutely, you know that we were a huge fan of yours when you came out. I got the buff that you sent me right up here. It's a little, there it is, the Masu. So it's up there with the picture as well. And Dino, we just appreciate you, man, and coming on and speaking Survivor with us.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for this. Thank you of me inviting me on. I'm always open to doing these podcasts. Love chatting with you about Survivor. Love that it's more like a casual fan chat amongst mates. It really keeps it fun and light and less serious. So I really enjoy chatting with you guys. So please do keep me in mind for future seasons. I'm super down to continue. I really enjoy both of you. So thanks, Abe. Thanks, Randy, and keep putting out what you guys put out. It's really good stuff, and it's important for Survivor. So, yeah, man, really appreciate it. Thank you. Guys.
I'll try not to bother you too much. That's the thing. I'm like, I don't want it to get to the point where Dino's like, Jesus, Randy, stop messaging me. Abraham, you got anything to add before we wrap?
Randy's had us in all kind of clocks. I'll be checking because this is only my second time with the new format. This is the second time with the new format. So I'm like, I can put my name down there. So Randy be doing all kind of new stuff. But hey, Dino, it's always a pleasure, man. Get a chance to chit chat. It's amazing that you live in a whole different other country playing a Survivor, and we're talking about Survivor. We definitely got it when Australia comes back. We definitely got to have you back on so we can talk about Australia Survivor because I totally love those challenges. I think y'all all eat too much on both of y'all seasons, but don't worry about that. Cut back on the food.
There's one thing, Randy, I really wanted to say. I really
go
need to make
ahead.
this
No,
point.
go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
I know you push for time, but
You're
hey,
good.
it freaking blows my mind, and I hated seeing when fans talk about, oh no, 26 days is a much easier format for players, right? It's their point that they reach deprivation has been sped up. They're not getting any staples. There's no rice. There's no staples. What they're getting is the very little that they can forage, and I cannot tell you how little that actually is. So players in
I
this
can't
26-day
imagine.
format, 41, 42, 43, 44, they are suffering physically. I can tell you that now without having been out there. It's way harder than it looks. So just believe that plays a huge factor. And yeah, dude, it just blows my mind that people think it's easier. It is not. The players are suffering. You guys have it hard in that sense.
Let me co-sign on what Dino's saying as far as what you're going to feel like for all y'all future Survivor players. There's a production part of Survivor just as much as there's a game player part of Survivor. The production part of Survivor wakes you up at 3:30 in the morning that you start your game. Now, you don't know how the day is going to go, so you don't want to overeat. And so I think I had a muffin and some juice. Now, off that muffin and juice, because I got up at 3:30, I got dressed, I got ready, and that's when we found out what tribes we were on. And then we go through security to make sure you don't take anything in the game. Then you get on your respective rafts at that time. We film for 3 hours. All you doing is drinking water. So that's 3 hours already gone. You may get to the challenge 4 hours later, and then you have to muster up everything that you put in there from the night before, hopefully, to that morning. Now you got to compete in a physical challenge. You're done with the physical challenge. It's over. You ain't got no place to eat. I think we had coconut that night, and that's it. And everything else is physical after that. But you eat what you find. So if you don't find anything, your body already starts to change starting from that first challenge because you're not putting anything back to replace it. So remember that when you go out there playing, talking about 26 days, you don't get hungry. You gonna get hungry day one.
If you go out there, you play the game of Survivor, this is what you have to expect from two former Survivor castaways. Listen to their advice. It's not going to be easy. And if you're watching it and you're like, this is easy, apply. Jeff says it every week. Send an application in. Go. If you think it's so easy, why are you just sitting on the couch? As Siri said, Siri. As Siri said, get off the couch. We'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Man,